Greetings and welcome to another edition of your favorite show, The Creation Corner, here on Prescott News. And be sure to look around while you're here on the website to all the good things we have here at Prescott News. You'll find all kinds of good news and bad news as well, but lots of news. And that's the important thing. We start off with a wee bit of humor, and here's today's. This is from Charlie Brown. Lucy says, "What's happened to this younger generation, Charlie Brown?" Charlie says, "It all started with bicycle helmets, and now it's everyone gets a trophy. Kids don't know what it's like to feel pain when they do something stupid. Stupid should hurt." I agree. And you know what's the most stupid thing they teach in schools these days? Evolution as a fact. That's stupid. That should hurt. Okay, here's another one. Kilt. It's what happened to the last person who called it a skirt. Oh man, that'll teach you. I hope you take a lesson from that. Okay, here's the last one. A pessimist sees a dark tunnel. An optimist sees a light at the end of the tunnel. The realist sees a freight train. And the train driver sees three idiots standing on the tracks. All right, there you have it, man. And, we're going to start off today talking, you know what? I want to give you just a wee bit of information about the UK. Well, the full name of the UK is not the United Kingdom. It's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now, that's kind of a mouthful, so you never hear that said, do you? Never. But that's the full name, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Well, there's 4 parts of Great Britain. That's why it's a united kingdom. And I wonder if you know those 4 parts. Important to not call England Great Britain or United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, because that's only one of the 4 parts. The other parts are Scotland on top of England, Wales to the southwest section of England, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the name. United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Okay, so Northern Ireland is those top 6 counties there in the north, and then the other 26 counties are the Republic of Ireland. All right, I hope we've got that straight in your mind now. You'll want to know that. And you know what? If you remember that, you'll know more about the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland than 99% of Americans, because they don't know that stuff. I wanted to tell you a little bit about a couple of good events coming up. And the first one is a intensive training in Dallas, Texas, and that's at the Institute of Creation Research. And this is their building. I think it's only a year and a half old now. It's a beautiful building, new kind of a architecture on that, and they have a wonderful museum inside and conference space. So they're going to be having a creation intensive training, creation science, coming up here, and that's going to be June. Well, let's just read a little bit. That's going to be June 8th through the 11th. And they're teaming up together with the Institute for Creation Research is teaming up with a Creation Training Initiative. That's Mike Riddle's organization from Idaho. He teaches people how to be creation teachers. That's his ministry, and he does a great job. I've had a week-long course with him, and boy, was I whipped up into shape. He's a ex-Marine captain, and he will drill you till you don't have a whole lot of hair left in your head. I'm absolute proof of that. Okay, this training seminar, the topics will build on each other to train attendees to teach creation science. Okay, I was just talking about that. And this is what they're going to be going over. What makes up the biblical worldview? Critical thinking skills, how to ask a power question. Mike likes to call these key questions that he keys in on for evolutionists, power questions. How to ask power question, how to identify fuzzy words and magic words. Those are words that evolutionists use to try to cover up that they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't have any evidence. So we'll go over those words so you'll be aware of them. The application of critical thinking in biology. Boy, there's a lot of that going on. Biblical apologetics as well. Now, there's creation apologetics applies to defending the faith in the area of creation and the flood. That's the first 11 chapters of Genesis. Biblical apologetics is about defending the Bible as a whole. So there's a lot of people who like to attack the Word of God, and that's where biblical apologetics comes in. They defend the Word of God against those attacks, against the critics. Okay? There's plenty of them. Biblical apologetics. What the word apologetics means, well, we just went over it. It means defense or an answer. Scripture and the use of apologetics, how the Lord Jesus and the Apostle Paul used apologetics, the types of apologetics, answering biblical challenges, and Christian education, educating for success, the Sunday school program, basic foundations in science, the origin of life, the mechanisms for change, 4 things to know about dating rocks and fossils, examining the past and the fossil record, the Bible and the issues of time, basic hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is the interpretation of the Bible. 10 evidences the days were literal days. We went over that with Dr. John Ney here not too long ago. I hope you'll look at that show as well. Handling common objections. Part 1 is dinosaurs in the Bible. And you know, kids are taught from day 1. Well, maybe not day 1, but year 2 or 3 when they can start listening to stories. Dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago. Wow, talk about brainwashing. No, deep time is a theory. It's not a fact. So why do they always talk about it like it's a fact? Okay? The Word of God says there's no deep time. It says that He created a little over 6,000 years ago. So is it better to believe God or to believe what man thinks? You decide. Okay, so they're going to go over those objections about dinosaurs in the Bible, and that's a time-related issue. 4 things to know about dinosaurs. Handling common objections, part 2, biblical objections to literal days. Christ's amazing creatures, why they show incredible evidence of engineering. Amazing amount of design in nature, in created things. Incredible design. Even in a cell. Look at one little cell. And you'll find out right away, it's not simple. Cells are not simple. They're incredibly complex. One cell is more complex than the most complex thing we can build. The biggest computer, the space shuttle, you name it. They're extremely complex. And yet it all came about by time and chance? Well, if you think that's how it came about, I have a bridge I'd love to sell you because it's just nonsense. Okay, I did want to mention also that, people sometimes they say, I just don't know what is happening to our society. All these school shootings, these mass shootings. Why are kids going in school and shooting up their fellow classmates? I happen to know the answer to that one. It's because they teach them that they're animals in school. Yeah, kids, you came from pond scum, and, over millions and millions of years, this little cell in the pond scum somehow became you. Well, if you think that's science, I feel sorry for you. That sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? Because that's what it is, and does not belong in a science book. But you know what? When we tell kids that they're animals all the time, like it's a fact, they believe it. And why are we surprised that they act like animals when we tell them that? Yeah, it's a fact that you're an animal. You're an evolved animal. Well, when they act like an animal, that's what we should expect, right? What's odd is that they're all not doing that because we tell them they're an animal. That's not right. And we need to all do what we can to tell the education system that they need to change what they're doing. Stop brainwashing the kids. It's not about indoctrination. Why are you indoctrinating my kid? Because the evolution unit in the biology book is not science. So why don't you just teach my kids science and leave the fairy tales to some other thing, somebody else, okay? But it shouldn't be in a science book and it shouldn't be in education. All right. That's what I wanted to say today. And I have a really wonderful guest that I wanted to introduce right now. And, everyone knows about the Salvation Army. Everyone sees the kettle ringers at Christmas time. And so my guest today is Captain Tony Poe from the Prescott Salvation Army. And Captain Poe, thank you for being here, my guest today. And I sure appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I want to tell you something. I went to a Bible class. I got a Bible degree at Pepperdine University. Okay. And my scripture professor said to all of us, we were just boys back then, no women in the religion classes. He said, and they always called us boys. Boys, there's one organization out there that really does God's work, and that's the Salvation Army. And that kind of shocked me at the time. I said, really? The Salvation Army is the only one that you can count on to be doing God's work? Well, but then when I looked into it and found out more about it and about William Booth, I realized he was right. They are doing God's work out there in our society. And so I'm so happy to have you on board. And would you give us a little bit of rundown first about you and then some history on the Salvation Army?
Okay, well, I'm originally from Kentucky, grew up on a dairy farm there. And at a young age, I felt a call to ministry. And when I got out of high school, I went to Bible college and became a missionary in Michigan for 5 years. And then we moved to Las Vegas, got married. So my wife and I, Tammy, we have 3 children. We just celebrated 40 years of marriage. So we were in Michigan, and we felt a call to come to Las Vegas, where her dad was. He was a pastor, and we were going to start a church there. And it didn't work out, and so we couldn't find a church to minister in. So I got a job working at the airport there, and I did that for 17 years. And then we moved to Pahrump, Nevada, which is about 60 miles northwest of Las Vegas toward Death Valley. And we started attending the Salvation Army there, and I felt impressed within me, you need to get back to work. And so we started volunteering for the Salvation Army. And then I just felt the Spirit say to me, you need to continue as a minister. And so we applied with the Salvation Army to go to their training college, and we did for 2 years. And they ordained us as ministers. We came out as lieutenants and served in Southern California for 5 years. And then we went to Honolulu, Hawaii for 3 years. And then last summer, we came here. So we enjoy the work here. So my wife and I, we have 3 children, 2 in Las Vegas, 1 in Tampa, and we have 10 grandchildren and 1 great-grandson. So
wow, you already have a great-grandson.
Yes, a great-grandson.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And so we were fascinated with the Salvation Army and what the mission of the Army was. We were always looking for something to help people, we call it social service in some places. We call it family service now, but it's ministering to people who are less fortunate than us. And we found that in the Salvation Army. When William Booth founded the Salvation Army in 1865 in London, he found men that were on the street, laying in the gutters, and nobody cared about them. And they would go to work, get their check, go to the bar, drink all of their money on alcohol, and they had families sitting at home in what he called squalor. Yeah. And so he wanted to do something about it. So he started taking the gospel to them. And before you know it, their families started coming, and he decided to start the Christian Mission, which turned into the Salvation Army. And now we're in 132 countries since 1865, 156 years now.
How many countries?
132 countries
132.
around the world, yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And it started in 1865 with William Booth
Yes.
in London.
Yes, he was a ordained, he was a Methodist minister. He was more of an evangelist, and he and his wife started the work. And the funny thing is, when they would go to speak, many times they'd want to hear her speak. Her name was Catherine, so they'd say, have Catherine get up and say a word. And she was a very fiery preacher woman, and men came to the altar and turned their lives around. So from that, it started some of the things we do now, such as you'll hear of adult rehabilitation centers. It's a center where men and women can go, and they can go through a 6-month recovery program for free. Of course, it's funded through the donations where people, you've probably given to the Salvation Army. You had too many clothes, you clean out your drawers and your cabinets, and you take things to the Salvation Army. We resell those, and that money all goes to pay for people in recovery so they can go to the 6-month program for free.
And I do want to get to your different programs that you have to help people. But first, let's get into a little bit more of the history there of the Salvation Army. If I remember right, William Booth was kind of irritant of the church, the Methodist church there at the time, because he kept bothering them to help the poor, and they didn't really want to do it.
Right, yes. What happened is at that time in London, there was a pew tax. So you had to pay a tax to sit in the pew there in London. And of course, the people that William brought were the people that were, many of them were homeless. They didn't have much money, and so they sat on the floor, and he just felt that was not something he could support. So he told his wife, Catherine, we need to do something else. And he went and rented a little building and started that. And he started, it was actually a soap building, and they started making soap to help pay ministry. And that's where the soup, soap, and salvation, because he would feed them, he would give them, they would make soap, and he would preach the gospel of the salvation.
Yeah, that was their slogan, wasn't it?
Right.
Soup,
soap, and salvation.
Soap and salvation.
That's it.
Yeah, that's great, because a lot of churches and ministries want to take the easy route and just go for salvation. But the soup and the soap are pretty important too, aren't they?
Yes, and we still have the soup going right now. 5 days a week we feed people through our buildings. So 5 days a week.
Yes, that's awesome.
Breakfast Monday through Friday and lunch Tuesday through Friday. So
that's wonderful. Before we get into the programs, I'm definitely going to get into that. Let's hear a little bit more about how the Salvation Army grew so fast, so much, and how and the history of the Salvation Army here in Prescott.
Okay, so as William Booth started sharing the gospel, and one of the things that attracted people was the brass band. You probably have heard them before, and so he solicited some people to start making. If he felt that if all of the bars and stuff could have good music, he could too. So he hired someone who used to sing at the bar. He got converted. So he started bringing the music to them and doing the tunes for them. Yeah. And he would go down the street with the big drum, beating the drum, and people playing the horns. People would come out in the street and they'd drop the drum, and he would share a few words with them and say, hey, come on down to our building. We're going to have soup down there, and we're going to share a few words, and people would come and do that. And it just caught on to people, and the fire of the Holy Spirit, you would say, started instilling in people to do more, and so people started committing to it. And then we would get calls from different places to come here. So we got a call from America, come over to America. So they sent people over. We were just in Hawaii. There's a church over there that contacted them in California and says, send some people to Hawaii. And they sent a group of people over there. Here in this city, 1893, November the 10th, there's two ladies. They requested them to send people here to this city. And they came in on the train right here on Whiskey Row and was dropped right over here, right at the Palace Saloon. Two young ladies, single ladies, a captain and a lieutenant. They were dropped off, and they says, well, where's our church? And they said, you have to find it. And they started ministry here 1893, and it's grown as a result of that.
So the Salvation has been in Prescott since 1893.
November the 10th, they were dropped off the stagecoach right there at the palace, 2 women, and they started ministry, and it's grown from that. And so actually, Prescott is the oldest church, you might say, or core as we call it, in Arizona.
You know, I'm surprised that they would send women alone like that. Seems like they would be sending men, especially to a frontier town in the West, which is can be very rough,
Right.
and wild. The Wild West, after all.
You know, some of those women in that day, they weren't afraid of anything. When they came from London or came from England to the United States, it was 1 male officer and 5 women. They called them lassies, and they started right there at the harbor in New York and sharing the gospel, and it grew. It's spread across the United States.
You know, those bands are really well known. In fact, my wife comes from a town of 6,000 in northern Scotland. And she said, you know, one of the fun things I did when I was a kid is listen to the Salvation Army band come up the street. That was I thought that was just incredible. And so the Salvation Armies is so many places.
Yes.
How are they funded?
Well, we're funded. Well, of course, it's kind of like, we're a church, and so we have what we call military style. So I'm a captain, we have officers, and then the people who join our church, they become soldiers. And of course, there's people who attend who aren't soldiers, but you know, we take an offering every Sunday, but also we're funded through people. We have so many amazing people in our communities that they like the work of the Salvation Army, and we get checks all the time coming into our office that help fund the ministries that we do. And very little of our funding ever comes from the government. It's all from private donations of people.
Private funding.
Private funding.
And people can put the Salvation Army in their will.
Yes.
And give them their inheritance.
Yes, we've had people, when we were in Hemet, California, a lady gave a $4.3 million donation to help build a building and keep the property going there. If you ever heard of the Kroc Centers, you know who Ray and Joan Kroc were, who owned McDonald's.
McDonald's, yeah.
I think seemed like it was $4-something billion she gave us to open Kroc Centers, which are, you know, they're kind of like the YMCA on steroids. And they go into cities where there's one in Phoenix, and it's in a impoverished area, and they go in and they build the center, and people can come from that area and generally don't have to pay anything to attend it, because that was her mission, is to help people who are less than fortunate. And so from her, you know, doing that, we're able, I think there's 27 of them in the United States. There was one in Honolulu. So they're all across the United States.
Oh, wonderful. You know, I can't think of a better place to put your endowment into than Salvation Army. And their slogan is doing the most good.
Yes, right. With what you give us, we want to do the most good.
And you are doing the most good that I can see out there. I mean, more than any other church. For sure.
We're hoping to.
and probably any other ministry as well. So you think about putting the Salvation Army into your will as an endowment. I think that would be a great thing to do. Now, why the military formation of the Army, and how did that get started?
Well, when William Booth started it, he felt that he needed structure with the Army, and so he came up with the thing to do the uniforms. And what it does for us is it helps us to stand out in the community. I can't tell you how many times I've went. My first Sunday here, I go to a restaurant and people are coming up to me thanking me for what we're doing here in the community. And I'm going, you're welcome. You know, I'm not exactly sure everything we are doing, but it's because of people who paid the price for us. And so what it does is it helps us to be able to be recognized in the community. And there's a lot that goes, 156 years of this uniform represents a lot. And so there's a lot of, a lot on our shoulder to represent what William Booth started.
Yes. Now, this is your ID here? Is that
Well, this is to get me in our door at our building.
okay. And is there anything on the uniform that shows your rank?
The stars. So 1 star is lieutenant, 2 stars is captain, and then you have what we call the crest is a major, and then if you become a lieutenant colonel, then you'll have that with a border on it. And of course, people join our church, they get a uniform, and they'll have a blue epaulet without anything on it. And of course, our music people, if they're music in our band, they'll have a music note on their blue epaulet, we call them.
Okay. And is the Army divided up by region, or how does that go?
Well, we're divided up. There's Salvation Army started in London. That's our main headquarters, and then they're divided up by territories. So in the United States, there's 4 territories. We're in what we call the Western Territory. There's the Central Territory, there's the Eastern Territory, and the Southern Territory. In the Western Territory, there's 10 states that make up that. In the Western Territory, it starts from Denver, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Utah. It goes Honolulu, Hawaii, and Anchorage, Alaska. Or Alaska is also Alaska and Hawaii, and also the Marshall Islands.
Okay.
And Guam
Great.
make up the Salvation Army Western Territory. And then in our Western Territory, there's 10 divisions. And so our division is New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern Nevada.
Okay.
So our commander's in Phoenix.
Okay. And so territory
Southwest. Yeah.
Would the commanding officer in territory, would that be a colonel?
Well, some of them are majors. We call them a divisional commander. In a smaller division, it could be a major. Here in this division, since it's bigger, they're a lieutenant colonel. So after a major is lieutenant colonel, and then there's very few colonels because those are specific appointments.
Okay.
Like chiefs, they're in charge of hiring and firing.
Where's the main administrative office?
Rancho Palos Verdes is our main office in the Western Territory. Our main office for our Southwest Division is in Phoenix. Down on
Southwest is in Phoenix. Okay.
Yes.
Is there a worldwide headquarters?
London. World headquarters. There's one general, and that's right now General Peddle, and he's in London, England.
Okay.
So that's where our main headquarters for everything is.
Okay. Real good. Real good. Can you tell us about your programs that you do here?
Okay, a lot of programs here. Of course, we are a church, so on Sunday morning we have Bible study at 9:30 and 11 o'clock. We have a worship service, and then on Wednesday evening we do Bible study. We have a women's league that meets on Thursday. We have a family service office where we do assistance for people with rent, with utilities. We do food handouts several days a week. We do meals right now on Monday through Friday. We have breakfast. Tuesday through Friday we have lunch. So that's called our family service office. People can also come in and get emergency food. So if they're down, they don't have groceries, we give them a box of groceries to get them through for a few days. What else do we have? We have fresh bread and produce giveaway on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 o'clock. So they can come by at 1 o'clock. You'll see a line down there, and they can do that. What else? We have kids programs. We have our brass band. We also have, of course, about our kettle program. We have that running in November through Christmas. We have our angel tree program where we have this last year, Walmart actually put trees in their centers for us. And
can you explain the angel tree program?
What it is we find kids' names of maybe families that we've assisted, or we have a sign-up program where people can come in and sign their children up through 12 years old to get a free gift and clothes. And we put tags on a tree, and people come by. You might see it in the mall or in Walmart, and you see an angel, and you pick it off, and you say, "Here's a boy. It's 8 years old. He'd like a little truck and a a polo shirt or a shirt." So you go buy those for them, bring them to us, and we put them in a bag and give them out to them at Christmas.
And is that for children whose parents are incarcerated?
It's for anyone. Yeah, and we do that in some places, some cities. They do it for people incarcerated. We do it for the people in our recovery centers too.
Okay. And how do you know that those children that need these gifts? Are they recommended to you, or?
A lot. Sometimes we'll go to schools, like in Hawaii, we would go to schools around us where we did assistance, and the principal or the nurse and the teachers would give us a list of kids, and we would make sure we fulfilled those wishes for them. In Hawaii, we had 9,000 kids, or 9,000 people, because we did it for seniors also.
Wow.
So that was the biggest we've ever done, was 9,000.
Yeah,
It was
that's
crazy.
a lot of kids.
That was a lot, yeah.
You really are doing the most good, you know that? Tell me about the band here. Now, my understanding was that they were trying to put a band together, but they couldn't quite get enough.
Well, we have a band. They play every Sunday. They practice Wednesday night at 5 p.m. at our building, and then they'll play Sunday morning a few songs for us. They do introductions, introduction.
What
songs.
instruments are in the band?
Let's see, euphonium, clarinet.
What's a euphonium?
Euphonium is kind of difference between a tuba and a trumpet. It's kind of a middle in between.
Oh, really?
So it's a weird kind of looking.
I thought I knew all the instruments. Now you stumped me. Now I feel like a dummy.
So trombone, all those different instruments, yeah.
All right.
Anything brass.
So it's a brass band. So are you in the parades?
Yes, and we're actually hoping to be in the parade for Memorial Day and the 4th of July parade.
4th of July parade, I'll be able to see the band?
Yes, and hopefully
Awesome.
we'll have an extra piece of equipment in there. So
Yeah, I always go to that parade, man. I'm going to look for that
listen for the whistle.
brass band. We didn't get around to talking about the Salvation Army Seminary. Mm-hmm. And you went through that seminary,
Yes.
right? And you also, I'm assuming, do the preaching at the services?
Correct. My wife and I, yeah.
And those services are 11 o'clock on the property there, which is, give us the address there.
237 Montezuma.
237 Montezuma. That's South Montezuma, so
Yes.
it's south of Gurley, 2.5 blocks. So it's 11 o'clock, and how long does the service last?
Usually an hour, unless I really, get
The
going.
Spirit gets a hold of you,
yeah.
you just can't stop.
Right. My wife spoke Sunday. It was an hour. It was Mother's Day, so she spoke, but we both are able to speak.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year program. It's an accredited Bible college, so we got accredited for it. So
Okay, so you went to the Salvation Army Seminary. Now, it seems like I was told that there's, how many seminaries are there for the Salvation Army?
Oh, I wouldn't know that. Each territory usually has
Each
one.
territory. So if you're going to work in that territory, you go to that territory
Correct.
seminary. You
Right.
can't go to some other territory.
Right.
Seminary, okay. And you got some good teaching there, I'm sure?
Yes, a lot of Bible teaching, and then some classes on administration, because you're operating a business. Here we have a thrift store, so we help operate our thrift store, and people make donations, and it helps fund the programs like the feeding and different things that we do here.
So they have to teach you business education
Yes,
as
sir.
well, and how to do the finances. And
Right.
man, that stuff is way over my head. I don't get it. So I didn't go to those classes, but it's a good thing you did. There was a great article in the paper recently
Yes.
about you, and I have it on my desk. I meant to bring it today, and I
Right.
didn't bring it, but I see you got it.
Right.
Tell us about that article. What's important about that article?
Well, we put out an article in celebrating Salvation Army Week, which is May the 10th through the 16th. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower officially made Salvation Army Week, and it was actually November, December, and they moved it to May because we're so busy in December. And he stated, among Americans, the Salvation Army has long been a symbol of wholehearted dedication to the cause of human brotherhood. Wow. And that kind of stuck. And he thought a lot about he thought a lot of Salvation Army and what we do. And so right here in Arizona, we help more than 425,000 people overcome poverty in this state. So,
wow, that's tremendous. Yeah. You really are doing the most good, and I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank
and
you.
Everywhere, almost in the world, doing that good. And Dwight Eisenhower, they got a picture of him here in this article, and Happy National Salvation Army Week. And that's the first, this article is the first I heard of Salvation Army Week, and so I
Right.
wasn't aware of it. But it's neat that they have that, and Dwight Eisenhower is the one that instituted that, right?
Correct, yes. And then, so we do it it's always the week after Mother's Day. And this year, the mayor of the city did a proclamation for us, making this week Salvation Army Week in the city of Prescott.
Oh, that's great. Super. And are you doing any special activities during the week?
We're doing a few. Women had a special tea on Thursday. I went down and we handed out donuts because during the war, the women would go and make donuts and give out to the soldiers and coffee.
That's right.
They called them the donut girls. Yeah. And so we went and I took to all of our fire departments donuts. They were happy to see them. And I took to our police officers, the people in blue, and we greatly appreciate them. So we went and said, thank you for all the work you do for us. You support what we do, and we want to just say a little thank you back to them for. And it was, the Daylight Donuts. They were really nice to us.
That's great. What a nice thing. Yeah.
And my car still smells good from all the donuts. So.
Okay. Well, folks, we only got one more minute. So is there anything we missed that tell us that I don't want to miss anything that's important?
Well, we have a new program coming up. We're trying to start a new program called Pathway of Hope, where that we can do casework with people and not just assist them one time, but help them throughout the year. And so we're trying to get funding for that, and it's a new program we're going to start soon.
Where will that funding come from?
Private people.
Prescott E-News?
Could be. We're trying to get grants for it. We've applied for a grant, and then, if people want to donate to it, they can drop it by our office at 237 South Montezuma. People walk in there every day and donate. And we're so grateful for it.
And that's where all of your activities are really going on there. You've got the Salvation Army thrift store there. Right. And if you haven't been to that thrift store, folks, you need to go. Right. It's got some great stuff in there. And that's also where the administrative center is and the worship center is. Correct. Right there. And that's where you feed people every weekday.
Yes, currently.
Okay.
We have some new work going on Madison.
What's that?
We have new work. We bought a new building over on Madison Avenue,
did?
Right behind AutoZone.
What are you going to do there?
We're going to remodel that building and move our feeding program over there and expand it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And
okay. And now, last thing is that you, for the last 6 years, were doing a deep freeze shelter.
You're right.
Program. When it got to freezing, you opened up the place and said, "Come on in. We're going to let you stay here, and you'll be warm. You won't freeze to death out there." But you had to stop that this year, right?
I'm glad you asked that question because I was getting ready to say something when I was talking about our building on Madison. Our hope is when we get in that building, it's right by CCJ. They help people. They've cut their capacity down. We want to increase ours and possibly do our own program through that building over there. Because the home, if you go over there, they're living at our front doorstep. They're living across the creek.
Yes.
They're right across the fence. And so our goal with that new building is not only to move all the family service over there and the feeding over there, but our goal is to have both a men and women's shelter over there in that building, if we can get the funding for it. So people who are interested in helping the Salvation Army, if we can get the funding, we want to do it on our own. We don't want to do it with anyone's help, other than people who donate to us. And then we can run the program from November through March, every day of the week.
That would be great for this community. We really need that here. There's just such a need for homeless shelters in our community. And I'm so glad you're doing such good work in our community. And we really thank you for it. Folks, I want you to consider giving to the Salvation Army, putting them into your will, making a major donation if you can, because they're doing the best work of any organization that I know of, including any church organization. So, Captain Tony Poe, thank you so much for being my guest. I really appreciate you
for
coming
inviting me out
and telling us about the Salvation Army and all the good work you're doing.
We appreciate it. We love it.
God bless you in the ministry.
Thank you. Bless you too.
And we'll see you at 11 o'clock on a service some Sunday, I hope, too.
Good.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.